Hello everyone, and welcome to our latest project video. We've called this one the Green Crackled Decoupage and Plaster panel, and I'm going to explain every step we took, from applying decoupage paper and crackling paste to stenciling with our Athenian plaster. So, to get our project started, Solly Jo applied a coat of Posh Chalk Crackling Gel, as she had already applied a base coat of black paint earlier. To ensure that the Crackling Gel was equally and evenly applied, Solly Jo used a Posh Chalk Smooth and Blend brush. After this coat of Crackling Gel had dried, Solly Jo decanted some Posh Chalk Crackling Paste into a convenient tub. She then stirred some of the Posh Chalk Arctic White colour kick into this crackling paste until it was fully coloured throughout. This was done due to the paste drying semi-transparently if no colour or pigment is added. This coloured crackling paste mixture was then trowelled onto the canvas with a Posh Chalk Premium finishing trowel and spread across it. Solly Jo purposely spread it somewhat unevenly to create varying textures across the board. She then dried this crackling paste layer with a heat gun so we could continue on straight away. You can already see the cracks starting to form. The next step for this project was the decoupage application. As Solly Jo wanted to create a project that had a very aged look, she tore out a few irregularly shaped pieces of the Posh Chalk Abstract Trellis decoupage paper using a water pen. The advantage of using a water pen and tearing over cutting with scissors is that the torn edge is much easier to blend into the rest of your design due to straight cut edges being quite attention grabbing. Solly Jo then applied Posh Chalk Pigment Infuser to her canvas using a Posh Chalk Smooth and Blend brush in the areas that she wanted to adhere her pieces of decoupage. She then smoothed the pieces of decoupage paper down onto the surface in these areas, again using a Smooth and Blend brush, before applying a thicker coat of infuser on top of the pieces to really seal them to the surface. Solly Jo had left some of her pieces of decoupage hanging off the edges of her canvas in order to create the arrangement that she wanted. After force drying the decoupage she had applied, these excess sections were simply removed using sandpaper. The next step now was to do some stenciling, first using Posh Chalk Dark Green Metallic Paste. As we had not used our dark green metallic paste in a little while, it had started to dry out, so as you can see, we poured a bit of our Posh Chalk Paste lubricant into the tub of paste and stirred it until it was back to its normal consistency. Solly Jo then placed her Posh Chalk Hollywood and Vine stencil onto the canvas and trowelled the dark green metallic paste onto the stencil. Posh Chalk Premium finishing trowels are perfect for this type of stenciling, as they allow you to easily ensure a completely equal application across the whole stencil. This was done in a couple different places on the canvas until Solly Jo was satisfied. As you can see here, when Posh Chalk metallic paste is force dried, it causes it to puff up, creating a bubble-like texture. Solly Jo did this to all of her stenciled on paste before flattening it with her finishing trowel in order to create a unique, interesting texture. To tie this piece together, Solly Jo wanted to do a wash with the same dark green paste she had stenciled with. She first spritzed the surface with water and then applied a small amount of the paste in key areas before spreading it across the damp surface using a Posh Chalk wax extender brush. This ended up working out really well, giving the whole piece a slight green hue. Solly Jo then heated up her trim TR805 to create a top and bottom border with. As you can see, the trim should be heated until it is fully malleable before you begin application. WoodUglue by WoodUbend was then applied to the top and bottom of the canvas where her trim will lay. Solly Jo purposely covered a little bit more area than her trim will occupy to ensure that there are no small gaps where the trim doesn't fully adhere. Keeping the trim in its roll so it retains the heat that makes it malleable, Solly Jo then laid it down onto her freshly applied WoodUglue before cutting it to match the width of her canvas. Now that they were stuck down, she painted the sections of trim in the same dark green metallic paste she had used earlier to keep the piece cohesive looking. This was also done with the wax extender brush. To finalise the application and dry out the freshly applied metallic paste, the two sections of trim were then heated in situ and pressed down firmly. Now this piece was already looking great, but Solly Jo wanted to continue adding to it. So, she placed her Posh Chalk Dainty Trellis stencil on the board centrally and used her finishing trowel to spread Posh Chalk Athenian plaster across the surface equally. This step will add to the aged and textured effect she had been creating, as the uncoloured Athenian plaster will dry somewhat translucently, making it look faded and allowing the green colours underneath to peek through. To create even more variety and texture, Solly Jo then decanted some of her Athenian plaster so she could mix in some of the Posh Chalk Arctic White colour kick. This coloured Athenian plaster was then dabbed onto the surface with a sea sponge, with varying degrees of intensity. Solly Jo didn't want to cover the entire surface with this mixture, as she wanted the abstract and dainty trellis design she had applied earlier to show through still. A sea sponge was used as its naturally forming texture creates a very unique raised consistency when applying with it. This allowed Solly Jo to then flatten the Athenian plaster with a finishing trowel, creating a smooth finish that can be polished once it is dry, but is still raised off of the canvas to maintain the piece's layered effect. Once this layer of coloured Athenian plaster had been force dried, Solly Jo began using a belt sander to polish her surface. The best way to do this is to gradually move up in sandpaper grit with every pass and brush off the dust that accumulates on the surface in between each grit. As you can see, when sanded in this way, Athenian plaster will develop a glossy mirror-like shine. The final step to complete this project was using patinas to create shading and highlights. First, Solly Jo used a small paintbrush to apply Posh Chalk black patina along the edge of her two sections of trim, as well as a little bit in the centre of her canvas. She then also applied the Posh Chalk Primary Green Aqua patina and Posh Chalk Byzantine Gold patina to small parts of her trim to create highlights. She then used a Posh Chalk Wax Extender brush to apply a coat of Posh Chalk patina extending wax to the whole piece. This literally extends the patina she applied across the piece to create much more subtle shading and highlighting effects, as well as providing the piece with a layer of protection due to the wax acting as a sealant. During the wax application, Solly Jo noticed that the shading wasn't as intense as she wanted, so she added a few more patches of Posh Chalk black patina in the middle of her piece before finishing her patina extending wax application. Finally, she wiped off any excess wax with a paper towel. So, here is the result. We think this one turned out great. Solly Jo perfectly created the look of an old decorated wall with layers peeling off. Please let us know in the comments below what you thought of this design, and if we inspired you to start your own project, let us know, we would love to see it. Well, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed, please leave a like, it really helps us out. And if you want to see a new project video every single week, subscribe to the channel. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.